All right, here we go with your pen tutorial on how to apply pen to the shoe drawing using simply a ultra thin Sharpie pen. Okay, so the first thing is we just completed this assignment. Okay, we didn't do the hatching, but instead we added the circle and the cube, and we shaded those in using the 3 different pen techniques. So we talked about cross hatching, stippling, and gesture. What you need to determine first is which one of these techniques do you want to use for your shoe. Now, what I would do is I would probably pick 2 of the 3. So we're not going to do hatching. Well, I guess you could. But what I would do is I would pick 2 of the 3 techniques that we did in our pen activity assignment. And you're going to use that technique to start shading in your shoe. Just like before, we talked about the value scale using pen. And what we did was for each section of the shoe, we assigned it a number. So for example, if I'm working on an area that is pretty close to black, the number associated to that, according to my value scale, would be a 10 value. Okay, we are going to approach the same way with the pen, except we have a 6-step value scale. Now don't let that confuse you. Okay, 6 is the darkest, 5 is the next darkest, and by the time you get to 1 should be as light as you can go. If the image is white, if you have an area of your shoe that is legitimately pure white, then you can leave that white. You don't have to put any pen in that area. But for the most part, there is a value in your shoe. Okay? So what you're going to do is while you're working, you're going to pick out which technique you want to do, and I'm going to go ahead and use gesture. Okay, I'm going to use gesture for mine. If you want to use cross hatching, that's fine. If you want to use stippling, that's fine too. But I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to make sure that whatever area I'm working on, I associate it with a value. Okay, so if I'm doing gesture, I can also give myself a nice little edge first. But if it's an area that's 10, like this area right here, I'm going to make sure that when I'm doing gesture in this area, remember gesture is just small controlled marks made with the pen, almost in a scribble type style, but it's meant to be expressive and very artsy and energetic and fun. So I would do my pen for this area with a number 10 value, so there really shouldn't be any white showing. Okay? Now, over here, this is a very light value. Maybe I want to use stippling and gesture together. What I could do is I could actually come in here for this more of softer tone, and I can create those stitches using stippling. Okay? However, if you notice, if this value here is a 2 or a 3, then over here, I need to make that value carry over with pen using whatever technique I want. In this case, I'm going to use stippling. Okay, so notice I'm really taking my time. And it may take me, 10 minutes just to fill in this part of the Nike swoosh. Okay, I'm going to look really closely at a lot of these different values because it's not just white. So if I'm doing a 1 value, I need to make it look like this. If I'm doing a 2, I need to make it look like that. 3 should look like this. So all I'm doing is I'm thinking about which technique I want to use to make this look as realistic as possible. Okay? If you want to use cross hatching, you're more than welcome to use cross hatching. The one thing with the pen that you want to be careful of is you just want to really make sure that you don't go outside of the section that is meant to be done in pen. Because once you go outside of it, you can't take it back. Okay, so pen is permanent, like we've talked about. So I'm just going to continue working with pen, thinking about my technique. I'm also thinking about value mapping because I really want to make sure my values are correct, even when I'm using a pen. Remember, the challenges with pen are that pens, if I push down really hard or if I push down really soft, pens come out the same way, okay? The other thing with pen that I want you to think about is a lot of times people are afraid to use pens because they're worried about making mistakes. Let me just tell you right now, all of you, anybody watching this video that is about to do a drawing with pen, even if it's not a shoe, I can almost promise you, matter of fact, I can promise you, I can promise you that everyone is going to make a mistake. That is not a big deal. Okay, a lot of artwork, no matter who the artist is, if you look really close, the artwork has a bunch of imperfections, which can be a part of the beauty behind artwork. So don't stress about making mistakes. If I accidentally draw a line right there, okay, what am I gonna do? Well, how about we hide this line by going over it with the darker value? Okay, now obviously some areas I wouldn't want to put a line through my Nike swoosh, but sometimes that happens. And sometimes you might have somebody accidentally bump your elbow or somebody move your table and all of a sudden you got an extra line on your paper. All you got to do is find a way to hide it. Okay, so it's all about hiding your mistakes, being confident. And if you go about this drawing all stressed out about making mistakes, then you're not really going to be at your fullest potential for the drawing. So accept mistakes, go into this knowing you're going to make mistakes, and then just carry on, okay? As you can see, the shoelace up here, the values do change slightly. So sure, I may start out with a 10, but when I work my way towards the top, I'm gonna leave some white in between these marks. And then above it, I'm gonna make sure that's a 10. Just so that I can see that there's a little bit of a reflection on top of that shoelace kind of cutting through. And some of you may not have even noticed that shoelace, but it's there. I'm kind of working between an 8 and a 9 value, just with gesture. Okay, below it, sure, it's gonna go back to 10, but I wanna make sure that I'm getting all these values correct, and so on, okay? Down here, I would probably actually stick with this gesture, or sorry, I would stick with this stippling technique to get the value. I can also get that little design a little bit easier with the stippling. Okay, so this is the approach that I'm gonna take. I'm also gonna need to add a few values in between, or a few dots, because I need that value to be kind of somewhere in between a 3 and a 4. All right, now hopefully you watched this whole video. If you notice kids around you not watching the tutorial, please remind them that this is a big part of their grade. I'm gonna be grading you based on what I'm telling you in this video. So if you could just give each other a gentle reminder, that would be great. And we will carry on and finish the rest of the sections with pen using 2 of the techniques we talked about in our pen activity. And that is all. If you have any questions, always don't hesitate to reach out.